Manon, my name is Tawess, and today we are not focused on the mech as much, but it's an Orion. Today we are rather focusing on the paint scheme, and it so happened that in a recent video I had a brief conversation with Longino Garcia, I think the name is pronounced, a fairly long time subscriber who's, to mention they playing Waco Rangers currently. Seeing how my last video was a Dragoons video, but it seems to be a fairly normal conversation coming up. And well, it struck me, why not paint a Ranger? The Waco Rangers of course have a fairly interesting paint scheme that is desert. Okay, that was a bit bad. Anyway, it is a nice paint scheme. So we start this one with spraying with brown and tan to get a nice base layer, and then move over to inks instead of doing paints, because based on this paint scheme on the unit color compendium, it has a nice fade up the legs. Now this may just be shadows, but they still look very nice, and I wanted to replicate that effect of having this maroon-ish feeling of the legs coming up. So we hit it with some oak brown. Oh, sorry. We hit it with some oak brown first, and then a light dusting of Banshee brown, and now we're hitting it with some mid-brown ink. The mid-brown ink is a brown-reddish ink. It's not really maroon, but it's definitely have red tones in it. If you're not using armor painters, there might be some equivalent of a reddish brown you can use from some other company. I'm pretty sure they are, seeing how this is a very basic tone as it is. I also added a drop of water just to dilute it a bit, make it flow a bit easier, because this is flow more than staining we want. So you just want a light stain on it. Now, the Waco Rangers, of course, are an interesting unit. They are, for all intents and purposes, villains, if you're gonna be that stinging about it. They're not all that balanced, and had pretty much a shit thrown at them, unfortunately, because well, they were. Now we hit in Wrestler Mech with a soft brown, soft tone, and it's just to bring out the depth of the shadows. This one I hit with a very bright overtone. Yeah, Waco Rangers basically had a up and down vendetta against the Wolf Dragoons, and that is pretty much their legacy. And yeah, beyond that, they didn't do particularly much of renown, and even that ended in a disaster for them. But this makes them a nice villain, so to speak. But yeah, once we're done with the inking, which took 2 layers for both the legs and the body, we hit it with some nice highlights, basically. And this is my way of doing highlights with mix like this. It is not a uniform pattern. It's more a hitting it where I think it would look nice. Some areas get hit harder, some get hit less. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. If you want to do it easy and securely, in this case you just take pure Banshee brown and you hit all of the raised edges. That's an easy uniform one. Or if you want to go a bit more fancy, you pick a light direction and you highlight based on that direction. Now, if you're having trouble figuring out what a good light direction is, get a flashlight or something, or get the flash on your phone. Hold it up over the model from the direction you want the light to be, and just let the light hit it and watch where things get brighter and where they get darker. This is the easiest way to figure out where it is. You can even take a photo with your camera to, if you're having a hard time remembering where things are. That is the easiest way to do it. And once you feel comfortable enough with that, you can start playing around with it, making odd choices. Sometimes that makes things better, not being completely uniform, because the world isn't completely uniform. I have intention of at some point getting into object source lighting, which is another thing. Which is like if your mech is standing right next to, let's say, a street light, that light will be casting a light onto the mech that might be differently colored from the rest of the light. So it's like maybe a blue-ish tone on the most of it, and then one part of the leg and bit of the foot is in this orangey light. We're gonna go into that later. That's another thing, another video. But yeah, now we're just smacking it with some nice highlights here and there. And trying to get some dimension into things. That is why you do this. You don't need to do it. It's perfectly okay to not do it. You can just leave the base coat and the wash as it is. It is perfectly serviceable. But if you want to get a bit more dimension into it, this is the way to do it. Now, one thing to remember with this is also at this stage you can still go back and just fix any mistake. It might look a little bit odd, but you can just slap on the base coat again, cover it up, fix things. But the more you add on, the more difficult it is to fix things. So, don't be too worried about mistakes. It is a good chance that unless there's like a bold red stroke right across the mech, no one else is gonna notice it. Because you are the one who has the eye for detail. Most people are just gonna see the mech and assume that everything that is on it is intentional. But yeah. That is pretty much my advice. It is very Bob Ross-ish in its conclusion, but it is also fairly good advice. Just go with the flow. If a tiny mistake happens, don't worry too much about it. Just let it go. Assume that it's either imperfection of the mech or it's battle damage or whatever. Don't worry too much about it. If it is a spot you can't fix, if you can fix it and feel like you want to do it, but you don't have to. It's important to remember these things because sometimes you forget this and you get all up in your own head and be like, I don't know what to do anymore. Just relax. This is a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. If it isn't fun, find a way to make it fun. And if you can't find a way to make it fun, perhaps get someone else to do it. So, yeah, we're now basically hitting the cockpit area with my usual combo of a dark metal and a bright gold. And then we're going to hit it with some soft tone to just bring out the shades a bit. Or is it perhaps a strong tone I take? I don't know. Yes, a strong tone I use. But yeah. Because that is basically what we need. I mean, it's not much to say about it. You just slap down one layer of gold, a dab of bright gold, and then just add some ink onto that to darken down the recesses a bit. You'll see me done it a lot of times. I'm going to put out a video specifically about doing that as soon as I get a new camera that I can actually zoom in on, because this thing can't zoom. As said before, the GoPro is great, but it can't zoom. This is a 4K video being rendered down to 1080p just so I can zoom in a bit digitally. It's a very roundabout way of doing it. But yeah. It's interesting nonetheless. We also, as always, paint the weapon silver, but I'm at this point said that so many times that I'm not mentioning it anymore. It's just straight up silver. You pick whatever silver you want and you slap that on every weapon. Again, we'll do a specific video for that at some point, like some basic tutorial stuff. Not sure when though. So for now, just accept that we have painted the weapons silver. You could also, if you have some left, do some non-oil gloss on the weapon. That looks really good. But that is a dying breed of color, so I'm not entirely sure you're going to be able to find any of that. Sorry about the hand. And I mean, it's what it is. Now comes the fun part. Freehanding the red, white, and blue star that is the unit logo of the Waco Rangers. Yeah, it actually turned out surprisingly nice for, well, someone like me to do it. But a very juicy red and very juicy blue to make sure that you get the right shapes. Very soft strokes, short strokes, shallow strokes. That is how you do it. Sort of stroking actually. But yeah, a lot of shallow and careful strokes. And again, don't be afraid that if you mess it up, just paint it over and start over again. And that is all you can do. I can't unfortunately not show the process because I actually need to see what I was doing. It's bad enough as it was. But you'll see when we go to the rotary part later that it actually turned out decent. Now, to be entirely fair, my Dragoon's symbol also turned out decent because it is so small you can't actually see it properly. Your eye just registers a red, there's a black, there's a yellow, and that's about it. As good as it gets. I had forgotten the white. Because see, there's a white stripe right through the star. But again, keep the paintbrush moist, the paint moist, and shallow strokes. Also rest your hand on something. Pinstriping and detail work is all about resting your hand somewhere where it's easy to move but still have a lot of stability. That will come as no surprise to anyone, but that is how you do it. We had to touch up a few things though. One, it was basically very lopsided. So we went in and fixed it a bit, and then I decided to paint the rim of the missile launcher because it wasn't enough color. It needed more color. I was like, they usually paint some red, blue, and white stripes somewhere on their mech. They're very Texan that way. So I was like, where should I put them? And the missile launcher seemed to be the most natural place to put them. And again, keep it moist, keep it slow, keep it easy. Now, of course, you don't have to do it this way. You can also do a desert camo. You can do just a desert fade if you want to. There is no precise exact design for these guys, so just go with desert brownish tannish colors. I base a lot of my designs on how they look on the unit color compendium, but you can also look at Sarna or, well, it's called unit directory. I can't remember. It's another site linked for both these. You can see color unit colors of people who painted mechs already. I should probably upload a few of mine there, but it is what it is. There you go. Finished mech. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, and do play fair. Bye.